O'Brien spent time inside with Jeremy Bamber. He's on the line to us now. Michael O'Brien, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you as well.
Now, if first of all you could just tell me your story. You were in prison with Jeremy Bamber for how long?
I was in prison with Jeremy for about 7 years in Longlads in prison between 1989 and 1996.
Now, tell me, before we talk about him, tell me about your miscarriage of justice, because you actually were innocent and eventually you proved your innocence. Is that right?
Well, I did. I spent 11 years and 43 days in prison for the murder of a Cardiff newsagent, and new evidence came to light. And, I managed to clear my name. I was one of the lucky ones. And this is where I met Jeremy Bamber on my travels, because I went to a number of prisons as well. Like, you do get shipped around a bit, especially when you're protesting your innocence.
What was it, just if I can indulge me a little bit, Michael, if you don't mind. What was it like when you went through a case, knowing you were innocent, but then to be found guilty? What was that first night in your prison cell like?
I cried a lot, I got to be honest with you. I mean, I shed a lot of tears. I didn't think I was ever going to see my family again in the sense like that I was going to be a free man. I just thought my whole world was just shattered all around me. I just couldn't believe what was happening. I just didn't think these things actually happened.
And after the first year that you'd spent in prison, again, and you knew you were innocent of what you'd been accused of, after that first year, how was it then?
Well, I did get mixed up with in prison with the drink and the drugs because I couldn't cope. I lost my father when I was in prison, and my daughter died when I was on remand as well. So I had a hard time.
Your daughter died?
Yes, my daughter died a cot death. I mean, I really went through the mill. I don't want people to feel sorry for me, but these are just the facts which actually happened. And on my travels, I bumped into many innocent people in prison, the Birmingham 6, the Guildford 4, the Cowbridge Water, Jeremy Bamber as well. And I hope I can talk a bit about Jeremy, what the kind of person that he actually is. He's not portrayed, in the media, the tabloid press. They don't give him a chance. They don't look at the evidence of the case. And what I can tell you, listeners, is there is a lot of new evidence which hasn't been placed before any court or any jury, and, to give the man a chance to at least try and prove his innocence.
Do you think one day he will be allowed out and that people will realise that he was telling the truth or not?
Absolutely.
Because you believe he's innocent, don't you?
Absolutely. I mean, as soon as I walked into the prison and I seen Jeremy, he reminded me of myself. I was lost, I didn't fit in, we stood out like a sore thumb. And that's exactly what Jeremy was like. He was a very confident guy, you know what I mean? I mistook it for arrogance at the time, but it was that was my fault. That was, but I mean, he's not this animal that they've portrayed him, and that really does get to me. Like, because once you get to know him, you'll see that this is not the type of person they're portraying.
What did he tell you about what happened as far as that terrible crime was concerned?
Well, we didn't go into all the niceties of the case. All he was interested in was clearing his name and showing me the new evidence he had, because he had some new evidence and ballistic testing at the time, if I remember right. He had some stuff there, and, and he was more interested in about his innocence and what actually happened. But I do know he was, he used to, he's a human being. He suffered 2 injustices. He lost his family, he should have been grieving for, where he should have been able to go to the, put flowers on their graves and everything. He hadn't been able to do that. And then he gets, wrongfully convicted on top. So
how do you know, Michael? I mean, you've spoken to him, you've met him, you've been with him for 7 years, but how do you know that he's definitely not trying to pull the wool over your eyes? I mean, how do you know that? Because a lot of people must say they're innocent who aren't when they're in prison.
I work for the Miscarriage of Justice organisation set up by Paddy Hill, one of the Birmingham 6, and believe me, I've seen every trick in the book, where people have tried it on and said they're innocent, and then you look at the evidence and there's clear evidence that they did do it. I'm not interested in trying to help guilty people get out of prison. I want to make that quite clear, and yes, that does happen, but in Jeremy's case, I mean, with the evidence I know he's got, and unfortunately I can't go through it because it would be sub judice, because if it goes to the CCRC, there's a potential appeal. I don't want to jeopardise that, but what I can say is there is overwhelming evidence which was not available at the trial. Some of it was, but there's a lot of it which wasn't, and therefore on that basis alone he should be granted a new appeal to look at the evidence. I think that is only fair in a democratic society.
Don't you think this idea of bake-off for Bamber, which has been mooted, which has got us all talking, I suppose, is the wrong way to go? I mean, it could alienate an awful lot of people.
I think it was done in not in bad taste as some people may think it is. I think he thought it was a good way of remembering his family, remembering his mum, and I think it was done in good faith. I'm saddened that it's turned out that people think it was done in bad faith, because that's not Jeremy. He's not that type of person. He just wanted to, that's his little memories, keeping his family's memories alive in his head. He shouldn't be in there. And
after
what else can he do?
After 30 years of being in prison for something that you say you didn't do, it must. I mean, it must have made it very difficult. I mean, could he actually function, do you think, outside now?
He's going to need a lot of help. I know after the 11 years and 43 days after when I come out, I was suffering from what is called post-traumatic stress disorder. And most innocent people do suffer that, because it is a traumatic event when you know you shouldn't be in there. You're in there with some serious criminals, people who have done such bad things that they're probably never ever going to see the light of day. And when you're in with them kind of people, you think, well, I'm never going to get out because they won't, because I didn't do it. And normally, if you say you didn't do it, they don't like to let you out on parole or anything.
Did they ever find the person who did commit the crime that you were blamed for?
No, the recent developments in my case is basically due to the new technology, the forensic evidence, the DNA advancements, they are looking at the case again. The South Wales Police have apologised and admitted we're victims of miscarriages of justice, which is good for me because, it's all part of the healing process. But, this isn't really about me now. This is about, Jeremy, as far as I'm concerned, and other innocent people.
Have you visited him since you came out?
It's very difficult to get in to see him in prison because he's a Category A prisoner. You've got to be vetted. You've got to go through stringent tests, and it is really difficult. But yeah,
well, I think you're going to break him out when you go in.
Well, I don't think they're going to do that. I mean, but because of the charges, he's still a Category A prisoner, and you've got to be vetted and everything. And I mean, it's a really, really hard process to get on the visiting list, to be honest. But yes, I would visit Jeremy Bamber in prison, but we have corresponded on a number of occasions.
What do you think the likelihood of him getting another appeal is?
I think it's quite strong. With the evidence he's got, I mean, I wish I could talk about it. It's very frustrating for me not being able to do so. But I know he has got evidence which changes the whole picture, what was portrayed at the trial, and that's the important thing. And if that is indeed the case, and it changes the whole picture of what actually happened, then an appeal should be granted and it should be looked at.
You said you thought when you first met Jeremy Bamber, you thought he was arrogant, but you realised it was a mistake. Do you think one of the reasons he was convicted was because people thought or misunderstood his demeanour?
I think it possibly was. He's a confident man. At the end of the day, how can I put it? He comes over as very plausible, and he is plausible. And I do believe in Jeremy. You
don't think you might have been taken in?
No, not at all. I mean, people have tried to reel me in on cases. I don't want to mention cases live on air, but as you can imagine, but I can assure you, when I worked for the Miscarriage of Justice organisation, I never let because of the miscarriage of justice, cloud my judgment. I looked at the evidence.
All right, Michael, one last question to you, and then I have to go. But what was the first thing that you did or wanted to do when you were released?
Hug my son. That was the first thing I wanted to do, was hug my son. Because I watched him grow up, and I was in prison. My son Kyle, he's now 30. unfortunately, because of the wrongful imprisonment, it's done a lot of damage between our relationship. And but that was the first thing I wanted to do, and I remember staying up all night, and it was on Christmas Eve as well, which was quite nice.
Michael, thank you very much indeed for talking to us this morning. Michael O'Brien, who spent 11 years, 43 days in high security for a crime he didn't commit.